you long at all. I got a real simple task here. I'm introducing that dude, right? Dr. Bashir Easter. I met Dr. Bashir Easter several years ago. I think it was behind UWM dorms playing basketball, right? We thought we was both going to the league, and God had other plans, right? And then I played with him in the church league, and just happened to be at the barbershop one day. He comes to me, and we're kind of talking about. He said, man, it's something I want to do, and I talked with Big Rob about it, and long story short, we was on a Zoom meeting. I'm not knowing he's a doctor. I'm thinking he'd do, I used to hoop with at UWM, so it was pretty cool, reconnecting, and then so many great opportunities have came just from reconnecting, right? Somebody say relationships, right? And it's important that you allow yourself to be open for what God has for you, right? So we did something with all of us research program, and that's doing well, and then the Lord gave him something that you will hear about shortly in regards to dementia, right? And we're here with Melanin Minded LLC, and I'm excited, man, for what he has for us to just learn more about dementia, as well as understanding the program that, God has put in place. Somebody say, this is God ordained. Come on, say it again. Say, this is God ordained, right? As a senior pastor, I used to be a former cop from 2000 to 2005 here in the city of Milwaukee. I will be a certified mental health clinician. I'll be graduating this week. Come on, somebody give God praise, right, in regards to that. I'm claiming that before I even take the test, right, but I'm going to pass. And as a senior pastor, April 8th, 2009, I became the senior pastor here of Unity God's House of Prayer, and I could give people scriptures, I could pray with them, but just as I've grown and developed, I've learned that people need you to walk with them, right? There have been members that I've reached out to, and I've apologized because we gave them the word of God, and we gave them blessed oil, and we gave them a prayer cloth, but we didn't have nobody that could walk with them, right? Brandon, Tony, would you stand up? He's the chairman of our deacon board, but he's a licensed Christian counselor. Give God praise for that, right? So he's a therapist, but it's cool to be able to have somebody give you the word, but also say, hey, these are the steps that we need to take, right? And that's what we're doing tonight. We're understanding this is in the church, because when I was growing up, if you came and said you had dementia, the pastor was going to say, or the preacher was going to say, well, God gives the spirit of a sound mind. We rebuke that demon. And you sitting there like, okay, I thank you for rebuking it, but I still got these issues that I'm dealing with. That makes sense what I'm saying? So no knock against the church, no knock against healing, against blessed oil, against God working miracles, because I've seen him do it. Somebody say, I've seen him do it. All right, that's the past for me, right? But I also understand that there's a practical side that we have to walk with you. Today I said something, and I said, what we got to learn how to do is get in the boat with people and help them row the boat. Don't just say, hey, there's a boat with rows. Go ahead, get in the boat with them and help them. So I'm grateful for how God has grown and developed me as well as the ministry. 3 things I want you to get out of this meeting on today. 3 things. The first thing is be intentional. Be intentional in the information that you're getting and you're receiving, because you're going to grow from this, but growth does not just happen, right? Be intentional. Number 2, see the value in yourself. That's why you're here, as well as the value you're going to add to others that dealing with dementia or early stages of Alzheimer's, right? And then I want you to be consistent in actively being the best support system that you can have when you see these signs in people, right? And love them as much as you can. Everybody think that's pretty fair? All right, man. So listen, without further ado, I want to present the some and introduce the others, the seer himself, Dr. Bashir Easter.
All right, everyone, I'm going to talk to you. We're family, all right? I rewrote this PowerPoint a couple times. And I was just sharing the story on how I rewrote it because I wasn't going to talk about all the personal pieces. But then God told me to do exactly what I told you to do. So I'm going to do it, all right? So what you see is what God told me to share. All right, so we'll get started. As able to pop up the PowerPoint. So before I get to talking about Melanin Minded, let me tell you how I got here. This was not my path. This is not what I designed or worked or went to school for to do. I have a background in business, supervision, and leadership. I was really in the private sector, not in any other sector regarding any type of services, social services, or anything at all. And what was going on with me at the time is all I thought was just to go to work, provide for my family, and do those certain things. But something was going on with my family. I'm the youngest. I have 2 sisters. And my mother, as our matriarch, all grew up. She actually lived on Highland, in the high-rise over there in Highland, if you know that area, that's there. And in that time, what was going on with my mother at the age of 50, she started to say certain things that were kind of weird. Like she would say, I saw a giraffe running down the street. Or, there's somebody in my next room that keeps banging on the door, and I think they came in and stole my money. This is at 50. We're like, Mama, who is it? So we were, who went into your house stealing your money? Right? We're believing the things that she would say, but nothing really happened that caused alarm, but we just noticed certain little things would be said. Well, my mother had diabetes. And so what was happening was that she wasn't maintaining or checking her sugar levels and doing those things that she needed to do, to the point where she actually had ulcers on the bottom of her feet. These ulcers got so big to the point where they were going to amputate her leg. We did everything at that point, went to the doctor and said, can you do anything to stop that so she doesn't have to be amputated? They said, well, the first thing she needs to do is she has to be able to take care of her levels, her A1C levels, and make sure they're not out the roof. And so we're in my mind looking at my mom. My mother had a medical background. She understood what the issues were. We just understand why didn't she take hold of that and take care of herself. And so he says, if the only thing that we can do, we can put your mother in casts, her legs in casts, to be able to see if the ulcers subside. And if they do, then we can save her leg. If not, we're going to have to take them. So she was in cast for about a year and wanted on the feet. And they said the other thing that she needs to do is to stop drinking Coca-Cola and smoking cigarettes. And she was like, Mama, you going to do that? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Well, the ulcers did subside after the year. And so what happened, we went back, and sure enough, they said the ulcer at that point did go to the point where it got smaller, but they still had to amputate her toes. And we was like, we'll be okay with that because we can then get a certain shoe. She can still move around, very mobile. So sure enough, she did that. She had surgery. We took her in. After the surgery, we went in. Mom had a beautiful smile on her face, and we're talking to her, and she didn't say a word. She didn't say anything back to us. So we were like, okay, what's going on here? Why is she not speaking? It's the anesthesia. She'll be okay. All right. So we get Mom packed up. We take her back to her high rise, take her inside, and we say, well, Mom, we're going to go ahead. We'll come back and check on you. You make sure you're okay. She said, yes. No, she didn't say anything. She just nodded her head. So one of the things that we noticed, everyone had a life. My older sister was living her life. My middle sister was just getting married, and I was the youngest at that time. And so during that moment, we noticed the next day Mom didn't call. We knew that was very odd because one thing my mother did is she called one of us to talk about the other one. And then we would call each other and say, who did she talk about today? That was her way of communicating certain things. And so sure enough, she didn't call. So they said, Bashir, you're the closest. Go over and check on Mama. All right. So I go over there. I'm bamming on the door. We're calling her cell phone. She's not answering. I had to go get the maintenance man. The maintenance man came up, opened the door. My mother was in the room, on the floor, same clothes on she had on when we dropped her off, and her bandage was bloody. She still wasn't saying a word. Sis, come on, we got to go. Taking Mom back to the hospital. We take her to the hospital, get her to the doctor, and I'm going to tell it to you just like it was yesterday. They take my mom back for an hour. They come back and say, your mom has dementia. She can no longer live by herself. So we're looking at each other. We're like, dementia? Live by yourself? Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. What is this dementia? Well, she's going to need assistance. Well, wait a minute. What do you mean she can't live by herself? She has her own place. We thought malpractice, right? We thought something happened to her in surgery. So when they're like, now he saw us going through this conversation, going back and forth. And so then we were like, he said, well, if you're not sure who's going to provide care for her, then you're going to have to put her in a nursing home. Now, if you remember what I said, my mother was 55. She was not, as you talk about medical terminology or physical, she was not nursing home level of care. So, of course, we're not thinking of putting our mom in a nursing home. So we said, well, we don't know what to do. And we literally left the hospital. I promise you, left the hospital, drove off crying, tried to figure out what was going on with our mother. So we had to come up with a plan. So we started talking. My middle sister's like, well, Mom can stay with me until we figure things out. But, and I didn't have a way to care for Mom at that point. My older sister was in flux, because I'm telling the truth. This is what our family was going through. And so in that process, we had to put our mom in a nursing home for 1 month. And it was the worst experience. What started to happen is this fog that she was going through, she started coming out of. Mama started talking. Mama started moving. She started doing all these things. And we were like, well, nothing wrong with Mama. What are you talking about? Get her up out this nursing home. Come on, let's get her home. So she got home, and she's sitting there. She's looking the same. She's moving. We was like, maybe it was just a spell. We don't know what it is. Still not understanding what it was. And so then the next thing we started noticing, there was a difference with our Mama. She looked the same. She would say certain things. It was a little weird, but nothing out of the ordinary, until she started to do one thing. She would say, I'm hungry. Okay, Mama, you're hungry. You must be, everything's wearing off. You're starving. So we made her a plate. So I'm going to tell you, like we're all family here, my mother made me plates at 5, 6 years old like a grown man. So we made her the same plate. She'd eat the plate, clean it. 5 minutes later, she says, what? I'm hungry. Ooh, Mama, you hungry? Yeah, Mama, I'm good. Let's get you another plate. She would eat that plate. 15 minutes later, she would say what? Huh? No, Mama, you're not hungry. We just gave you that. This ain't mine. I didn't eat this. And we're looking like, whoa. Okay, what are we going to do? We'll get you another plate. Now, this is 3 plates in. And what did she say after 20 minutes? I'm hungry. This don't sound right. So my mother did this 24 hours a day. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. To the point where we're like, we called back to the doctor who we thought who was supposed to help us. Doc, she's saying she's hungry and over and again. You know what he said to us? I promise you. What did he say? Feed her. Doc, we are feeding her. She's a diabetic. She can't keep eating like this. We don't know what to do. So he says, well, we'll medicate her. So they put on a high dose of medication where my mother would sit and had drool down her face. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to get that out of her. We're not. So we dealt with this, and I promise you, as a family, for 5 years of trial and error. We were caring for her like it was normal aging, and we were doing everything wrong. Everything. So in that, everyone was impacted. My kids, my daughter is here, my youngest daughter is here. She saw that. The other family members, they saw that. And we did everything we can to protect her honor and tried to figure out what to do. But we were breaking down because we were making a lot of bad moves. So what happened later is I started to work for the Department on Aging. Working for the Department on Aging, I was an elder abuse investigator, and that's when I started finding out and learning. Remember, I said this was not my background. And I started working there, and I started learning about what? Services. All these services. The Alzheimer's Association, the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute, respite care money, and I got angry. I got so mad. I said, how come no one said anything about these services 5 years ago? This makes no sense. So I went to learn more, and I began to serve people with dementia, understanding how to care for them in crisis. And then the Department on Aging moved toward the state of Wisconsin, moved for this program called the Dementia Redesign for the state. I became the first African-American dementia care specialist in Milwaukee County. And in that, I started to build this county out of the eyes of a caregiver of all the things we did wrong. And then I went to a conference that was at the Alzheimer's conference in the Dells. And I saw a sea of our brothers and sisters of Caucasian descent sitting there hearing about all of these different things about this disease. And I walked past one of the sessions, and one of the gentlemen said, African Americans are 2 times higher to be diagnosed with the disease, and our Latino community is 1.5 times higher to be diagnosed with the disease. And I looked in the audience, and who did I see? Not us. How is this information being given out, and we're not in the audience to hear about what is impacting us at a higher level? I got angry again. So I started to push to make sure we understood what was going on. The work that you're about to hear was actually started and developed in 2015. And there was reasons why, and it's all because of the Father, why it didn't happen in 2015, because it was supposed to happen now in this church through Pastor Locke and through you all. And I'm going to explain why. So in that, as I started learning more about the disease, I started making it my mission to make sure that people understood about the disease, the services, the supports, the information. And it's not me just handing this information to you. It is walking you through this process. As I continued on, I started learning champions that were in the community. It was Gina Green Harris with the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute, champion. Nia, as Dr. Norris is a champion in the community. There's a lot of these resources, but they're still not reaching us at a higher level because we're not thinking about what the disease is or isn't. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'll come back a little bit of the story that moved me forward with our mother. So as I said, in 2018, they said that 5.7 million Americans were living with Alzheimer's disease. The number is expected to increase to 14 million in 2050. With a longer lifespan, we talk the baby boomer generations, we are recognizing that it's going to continue to increase. But as I stated, it does not affect every race equally. It is the truth that it is stating in the numbers that African Americans, our Latino community, our Native American community, and our Asian descent communities are at a higher risk. And the numbers are even higher. But what is dementia? Now, how many of you have heard dementia and Alzheimer's disease the same? And use them the same way? You can say it. You hear Alzheimer's, dementia, and you say that's the same thing. Do you think it's the same thing? It's not. But we use it in that capacity. And let me explain to you why it is important to understand what dementia is and what it isn't. So dementia is an umbrella term regarding symptoms. These symptoms could be easy. We talk about memory, communication, language, ability and focus, reasoning, judgment. It's just a basic, it talks about an impairment, even if it's called an impairment in daily living and daily life. We can get dementia from multiple things, and I'll explain it to you when we talk about reversible dementias. But when you talk about what I should have had, that information should have been given to me from that doctor. Now it was 18 years we cared for my mother. He should have told us exactly what dementia was and the resources that were there. And why we needed to know it as a caregiver, because we were making all the wrong moves in providing care, number one. Number two is behaviors are all communications that's coming out of that individual who's trying to understand. So what are these reversible dementias I'm talking about? So we talk about drugs, emotional changes, talk about depression, metabolic conditions. We talk about ears and eyes, nutrition, tumors, and I'll say what these are, right? So if you have a drug and it's an interaction of that drug is not good, they don't interact with each other well. You may feel a slur of words, drowsy. You may have these certain issues. Those are considered dementia symptoms. If you have depression issues as well, that's a chemical change in the brain, but you do still know that there's some changes that are going on that you're not normal. Those are considered symptoms, which we consider dementia. We talk about ears and eyes, nutrition. We talk about tumors, urinary tract infections is one of those things, even alcohol. These are all things that go along with the body that causes these, what we say, are symptoms of memory, vision, and all that stuff like that. How many of you have gone to a grocery store and you came out and you looked around and said, where did I put my car? And you don't even have the clicker to do the alarm, and you just like, oh, no, that ain't mine. And then walk up to that car. How many of you going in the room and you walked in there and you were sure enough, like, yeah, I'm finna go ahead and get this. Why did I come in this room? Okay, let me go on out of here. Oh, yep, I was supposed to, no, I lost it again. How many of you think you have memory issues? Huh? How many get scared? Don't. That's not what we talk about, these type of dementias I'm talking about. That is, if you can remember anything that you have gone through or missed or a mishap, you're okay. It's the part when you don't even remember that it even happened. And let me explain to you what that means. The reason why you need to know the type of dementia you have is because of behaviors. The type of dementias you actually will have, you have to go through a batteries of tests and have to go to a diagnostic clinic to get that information. Your regular doctor cannot do this. Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, mixed dementia, the list goes on. All of these types of dementia, right, impacts a certain part of your brain. Your brain is a beautiful machine. Your body is. I say you see, you touch, you taste, you feel with your brain. With your brain. When my mother was told that she had dementia, the main thing I heard of was Alzheimer's disease. That's the main thing they talk about, because they talk about it being memory. Memory being the piece that is the first thing, which is true. Alzheimer's is the memory part. My mother could remember old and new. And it would boggle me like, well, how can you remember stuff and you know these things and they say you got Alzheimer's disease. You're not supposed to remember. Well, my mother didn't have Alzheimer's disease. She had frontal temporal. This part of the brain, which was damaged, this is the mechanism that tells you to stop, that tells you to say, hey, I have a good friend, but they have a really bad odor. But I'm not going to say that because I want to keep that friendship. You may pull them to the side. With someone that has this, they're not able to control executive function. My mother would cry and laugh in the same moment. She couldn't regulate herself. We didn't understand that. So her behaviors became very erratic, and we thought it was Alzheimer's disease. No, it was this. She couldn't make a decision. And when she made the decision, because what was happening was she had gaps, and I'm going to explain to you what it looks like with gaps in her executive functioning. How the real work of the brain. So when we talk about the brain, every last one of you are in here, are sitting here tracking, understanding, looking, paying attention, and all of our branches and synapses are going. When I first started understanding this journey, I started understanding plaques and tangles, plaques and tangles, plaques and tangles. That's all they were talking about. I'm like, plaques and tangles. Well, in here, in your brain, what's happening right now, everyone's firing. There's signals going all the time. Well, there's a piece where they're trying to find out, which is called amyloid fluid, that may be a cause where it gets to the point when those signals and all that synapses that's going on, that there's a plaque that builds up in your brain that sits on these signals and destroys them. Gone. And by it being gone, they're not growing back. So determining at what point of these synapses, and these synapses control if you swallow, blinking, you guys are adjusting yourself in your seat, you're tracking and understanding, memory and functions, it's a part of your brain that's being affected. If it is gone and damaged, now your brain is rerouting and trying to connect to make an understanding of the environment that it's in. So that's why you see these behaviors that are odd. But they're really not odd. It's the brain trying to understand what's going on. You may see something on the table, and the person would say, can you give me that apple? And you're like, that's not an apple. That's a glass of water. And then, what are you talking about? I said that. Give me the apple. The brain is understanding what it sees and what the information that it's getting from the eyes, then it's spitting out what it's able to understand, even in that. What do you all see here? Tell me what you see on the normal brain. Tell me what you see. Spit it out, because you have to see it. What do you see? It's fuller, right? What else you see? What's the difference? You see holes. What else do you see? Smaller. You see eyes. It's wider. We're all sitting here with normal brains. Someone with severe Alzheimer's disease, this is the brain that I was talking about and trying to make decisions in the behaviors that you're seeing from the individual. It is getting information brought to them, and literally it's trying to filter through holes, gaps, shrinkage, and pieces that are not there anymore. We do not see that. If you saw someone with a bandage on their arm or and had a cast on their leg or on crutches, and they were heading for the door, what would y'all do? You would go what? You run and help them and open it. Think of that person with that brain is exactly the same way. They need patience. They need understanding. They're not doing it on purpose. They're trying to understand a world that they used to live in every single day now has changed. And they are aware of it. So they do everything they can to hide it, They do everything they can to try to stay normal. And usually when we notice as a family, talk about us as people, we notice it in family gatherings. The first thing you start noticing is, who made this potato salad? Well, you know, Mama made the potato salad. Well, no, Mama didn't make this. Mama made good potato salad. No, Mama made the potato salad. But why does it taste salty? But why does it taste so sweet? She's still understanding the recipe that she did in her mind. She didn't write nothing down. And in her mind, she put the right ingredients in it. She also has noticed, and he's talking about the men, they're noticing certain things that is normal to you, it's not normal. So they're going through their regular routine and realizing that there's gaps. So I'm explaining to you with those gaps real quick, but I'm also show you my mom. That's her, Dolores Pitts. That's the legacy of this work that we are doing with Melanin Minded. Dolores Pitts, she went to the Father on Good Friday of this year. This is fresh. 18 years, me, my two sisters, and the family provided care for Dolores Pitts. This is her legacy and the work that we've been doing to try to get people to understand through the struggles of caring for her is the goal that you will not go through the exact same things we went through. You will not. Not while I'm here, not while Pastor's here, not while we're doing this work. Anyone who has any issues, there are services and supports that you can get right now. And I'm going to tell you about those. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the mission. Let me tell you how this actually happened as well. We talk about being very open and vulnerable. God gave me this vision. He would wake me up, but it had to be around 2013. He'd wake me up at 5 in the morning. I'm telling you how it is, 5 in the morning, and he would give me things to do regarding this work. He didn't tell me it was Melanin Minded. He didn't tell me in that capacity at that point, but he would tell me what did I need to do to help his people. And so he would show me things in gaps. He would say, here's the gaps, and I need you to fill them. So the main gap was resources, services, and supports. But I realized that we were not getting them at a higher number, but our house is the one on fire. So how come our services are not geared to us first? Not saying anybody else doesn't receive them, but our Caucasian brothers and sisters are getting these services like that. They're walking in immediately. They're on the walls of these agencies. But we're not there, and we're the ones having the major issues. So those are the gaps. The other thing that I noticed was the youth. This is where I got my doctorate from, was regarding the youth. The youth are also providing care because African Americans and our Latino brothers and sisters provide care as a whole unit. So we walk in, grandma needs help, grandpa needs help, mama needs help, they need help, but they're caring for their loved one at a high level, which is called personal care worker. They're doing med management. They're actually doing, taking them to the bathroom. They are actually doing companionship, and they're dealing with an individual who's going through all these behaviors, and they don't have the capacity of the age from 14 to 17 when I did my research, the brain capacity to understand what an adult is going through in these changes. So we talk about depression. We talk about them having to step out of their normal role of care. They want to be with their friends and enjoy them time, but now they're sitting and having someone having an outburst or wandering. Their brain is not understanding that. So my research focused on a couple things. They were having these issues, but what they also learned is that they had resiliency. In that capacity of providing care at that young age, they started to have a track of services or careers that they wanted to get through or to because of this care that they did for their loved one. And so we're building that possibility for them being invisible caregivers, that we're providing that service so they can move towards that personal care work to either be RNs, CNAs, RNs, and so that's another program that we're bringing to the church as well for the youth to be recognized. The other thing that we're doing is interventions for families who need to understand these services and supports. We'll be bringing that to the church. We have a 5-point system that we bring in that you will be equipped and you'll be empowered to provide care for your loved one, because crisis is usually where you find us, is in crisis. And what crisis is, and everyone has their different types of thoughts of crisis, but how I've termed it is, crisis is just you have the lack of information to deal with the situation. That's it. The lack of information to deal with the situation. Our goal is to make sure you have a power of attorney. Who has a power of attorney in here? If you do not have a power of attorney, you need to have a moment when we have a power of attorney parties, is what I call them, to have you a power of attorney done for yourself. What a power of attorney is we're explaining that is that you will make a decision. You will tell someone you trust to make a decision for you when you cannot make a decision for yourself verbally. I'll explain more about it when we have another event, but the focus is that these are certain things that we have to have now. And the biggest thing is you do not want the courts to make the decisions for you. Because if you don't have these things, you will go through a process which is called guardianship. And they will make a determination on who is going to be over you, and you don't have a voice at that point. So we want to make sure those things are doing. The mission, our mission is to be the bridge for information, services, and supports for people of color. The vision of that is to empower and equip people of color to have an optimal quality of life. And that's going to span throughout. Our first push of that is the navigator transportation. So what are we doing with navigator transportation? Before I get into that, does anybody have any questions about when we talk about dementia, Alzheimer's, how it's impacting or anything like that? And I know you will, because we haven't retained all that. It's a lot. And I have no problem. My job is to help, and I'm going to do it. But with the transportation piece, why this is important, when this was happening in 2015, I started the county and started the process. I originally started this with Uber. Uber just came into Milwaukee County in 2015, and the reason why I started it is because there was a family, literally, I went in to provide service for them. They stayed to me. Before you go into tell me about all your services, let me tell you what I need. My husband is a mall walker. He loves to walk. The issue is I work, and I can't get him to the mall because I'm going to have to get off of work. He has the early stages of the disease. He's still able to function. He's still able to do things, but now he's sitting in his house because no one can get him. Here's what we exhausted. I won't allow him or don't feel as comfortable him getting on the bus because I don't want him navigating change and try to navigate which direction and getting off or getting on. Don't want him to do that. We tried to do a taxi service. The taxi would pull up. At that time, they just would go outside, and he didn't know when to come out or when to go, which was the issue with that with the taxi. The other thing that he had an issue with was Transit Plus. There's a Transit Plus system that they have. The Transit Plus was they would go and pick him up. He had to schedule a day ahead of time for it to come pick up. But when he would get on the Transit Plus van, he would see individuals that had other disabilities. And he felt like, that's not me. And then he would have to ride the circuit before he would actually get back home, and all he wanted to do was get to the mall. So all those things he called family, and everybody would step in, but hey, I got to work and stuff like that. So he would sit at home majority of the day. The issue with that is when we talk about dementia, isolation is an issue. Exercise is what you need. Socialization is what you need. Diet is also very important, and he was not getting all the things he needed to help him develop. So she asked me, what did I have at that time? And I said, I ain't had nothing. And I left the house. But it stayed in my mind. So in 2015, Uber just started coming on the scene. I truly saw a group that was on a corner on Holly Road. They were just putting up a tent to try to get people to do this, the riding. I went over to them. I said, hey, I'm interested. Would you be interested in doing this with me? And we'll have an idea what your thoughts. They said, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. So we started that process, started to move forward. I was working for the county at that time, and there was some rub in regards to it because my name was on it, and they wanted my name to be off. And I said, no, my name ain't going to be off of it. So they squashed it. I was very angry. I was very mad because I knew this was a service that the community could use. But God told me later it was meant to go this way because it was supposed to come here. Pass it on. It was supposed to come here for you all. And let me tell you what it is. So we are using a Rideshare technology that we have under Navigator Transportation, and I use Rideshare. It just says Uber and Lyft. The difference is, in regards to it, is that we now are going to be training our drivers, and we have Gerald Washington is here with me. He's a part of the staff. We have Robert Jackson that is here as well. In doing this is we will make sure as drivers they understand. I don't need any drivers. I don't just need anyone to do this. I need someone who either had a personal connection with this disease. I need someone who understands. When I first did the pilot, I had EMTs, firefighters that came, people that were driving Uber. I did a whole interview with them and a process of training. We weeded out a lot of them. Because a lot of them, they were just like, well, I don't understand. Well, we can train you to that, but I want you to have the heart. I want you to understand why this is a need. I also understood was, as I stated earlier, it had to come to us first. This is coming out of our community. It's going to be our faces. It's going to lead this as the first in the nation. I want you all to understand that this is history being made. This has not been done in this capacity before. The individuals with the disease, we are changing the understanding of what these individuals look like. When you first think of the disease, you think of the person in the decline. What is the issue is we want individuals to be diagnosed early and faster to take away that stigma because we want them to have a quality of life as long as possible. And then to do so is to get back out in the community. That's dementia capable. That's dementia friendly. When the individuals understand that I can still be able to be in the community, all we're doing is doing like bowling, putting some bumpers around them. They go to the barber shop. They still go to the grocery store. They still able to meet with their friends. They meet at McDonald's with their buddies. Only difference is the transportation. One of the biggest things, and I think you all may agree, when you get your driver's license at 16 and you start driving, doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel good? You have your independence that you can ride and get up and go anywhere. Well, just imagine when the keys are taken away from you and they tell you can't drive. The solutions that they've told you to do is disable the car. They've told you to come up with what they say, these little white lies. And that, all that does is have the person sit. So we are now providing a tool to help those individuals get back in the community. And what are we asking the drivers to do? We're asking them to do a little bit, right? We're offering a safe, reliable transportation, right? We're also providing that quality of life for them, provide relief and comfort. What we're also bringing in with our drivers to do is the music. Jump back to my mom real quick. Music was one thing that saved us. Remember I said trial and error? My mother would say, I'm hungry 24 hours a day. One of the things that happens, my sister called me and said, hey, Bashir, watch this. All of a sudden, my niece was singing to my mother, and she started singing a song, and my mother started singing it back to her. The song was a Hannah Montana song. And I'm listening to my mom sing the song, and I was like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to remember. That's a new song at the time. Your brain is not supposed to be able to hold that. These are the parts that we started recognizing the trial and error. Music became our saving grace. We put on gospel for our mother. Headphones on her ear, and she would sit for hours and just dance and sing and laugh. And I'm sitting there, and I'm wondering, like, well, wait a minute. How come when you're sitting there with the music on, you're not saying you're hungry? The part that hurt my heart even more, my mother was going, the brain was telling her, I'm in pain. So can you imagine, I'm sorry I'm jumping, y'all, because I'm feeling it. Can you imagine that you have a itch on your nose and your body doesn't tell your arm to get up to scratch it? Can you imagine that? My mother was sitting there in pain. And how we found out why she kept saying she was hungry is because back as a child, what we do to soothe when we are crying or upset, what do we do as a baby? What do you see babies do? Think about it. This is when you become a detective. When a baby starts crying and something like, we start checking if they need their soiled. But when they soothe themselves, what do? They take their thumb, put it in their mouth. The mouth is the first sensor as a baby. My mother needed things to chew to be able to deal with her anxiety of what was going on with her. Her brain was still telling her how to soothe herself even through all of that. And we didn't recognize it. So we started giving her chewing gum. The other thing we learned to do is giving her Tylenol. But we didn't think that because we were so dealing with everything else that once we realized that she was in pain, we started to do better. That's why understanding the disease is what's causing the issue. We're doing it like normal aging, and I refuse to allow anyone to go through that. Like we talked about when we had the conversation, I'm going to walk you through the whole process so you have no issues in regards to carrying your mom or getting the care for her. I promise you that. In that, what we're doing is we're bringing music in. My mother was sitting, listening to music, headphones, so music is enjoyable for all of us. So we're bringing the music thing. The music therapy piece is now we have a playlist that will be created for the individuals who are riding that will be in the car with you as a driver that they get to play. And I want you to understand we're talking about someone who is still high functioning. This is not an individual that you have to be concerned that they can't move around. That's what I want you also to understand that as well. Reducing the stigma of this disease. Drivers must provide, though, in that we talk about insurance. We carry insurance, but you also will have to carry your regular insurance that you have in that to be a driver. You will be in our system. If there's any problems or any issues, you are not separated. You are to be considered a contractor in regards to this. You will still be able, as we talk about the amount of funds that we're doing and what we'll be working with Milwaukee County, that you'll be reimbursed in regards to your services. It's the same. If anyone is an Uber or Lyft driver now, it'll be the same process in regards to that as well. Nothing changes with that. We're also things that you will have. Can you please start handing out the brochures? You would have to make sure that you do have an iPhone or another smartphone, Android, because we have the app that will be on your phone, the same process that you'll be able to do in picking up individuals, and then also connecting to individuals. You'll be using that system. You'll be putting all your information into that, so we will be going through the same process with the background checks, drug tests, and all of that, as well as your driving. Your vehicle that you will use, there will be no pickup trucks. You will be in the process, you have seat belts for the passengers. We're making sure that the vehicle is accessible for individuals. The Milwaukee County is looking for us to be able to expand that for individuals with mild cognitive impairment, as well as individuals who may have disabilities, but still be able to get up, back and forth, not to the point where they actually have a wheelchair van or anything like that. You do not have to have that, because we won't be, at this point, serving individuals in that capacity. The other thing is that what we're expecting in that is to reduce the stigma towards those facing Alzheimer's dementia, safe, effective methods of transportation, a peace of mind for families and care partners in meeting their loved ones with transportation, a community partnership, who we are partnering with in this effort. So we have Unity Gospel House of Prayer. We also have Aurora that we're working with their geriatric clinic that is right here on 12th Street. We'll also be working with the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. We also are going to be making conversations with a company called Direct Supply. We have a meet with them tomorrow. This is going to be an initiative that's going to start here in the church. That's why I made sure it was here. And it's going to be pushed to Texas. Is always already interested in it as well, but I said that we were going to start here first, but I do also believe that this is going to go nationwide. And anyone that is interested to be a part of it, you are the ones in the beginning. You're the ones that we're going to be doing this. This is a pilot. So you're not laid out there. The goal is we're having focus groups. So a commitment to be a focus group to be able to meet with us in this pilot to tell us what's right, what's wrong, what needs to change, because no one has done this in this part, so we want to make sure we do it right. If there's anything that we're missing, we're going to learn them in the focus groups. We are looking to do 600 rides in this pilot. 600 rides are going to start off with the pilot. The other thing that we're focusing on, we're about having maybe 50 drivers and maybe 25 families that's going to be a part of this. You could be a regular driver for someone, for an individual, if you like. We will see how it goes in regarding this pilot. After the pilot, the Milwaukee County is making a mention that this is going to be a new form of service that they're going to add to they call the No Wrong Door for Milwaukee County. So I want to let you all know in regards to this. How do you want to be a part of it? This is just the recruitment and the process of discussing more about it. I want you to be able to go to, it should be on your brochures that you have. Go to info@melaninmindedllc.com. Give me your email and say, yep, I'm interested. What really happens next is then we actually start doing interviews. We go through the interview. If everything goes good with everything in the discussion to understand that we have the right driver, the next process is to go through your training. And the training is what we kind of talked about today, Dementia 101. The Dementia 101, the understanding who's in your car, you have a better understanding of who you're serving. If you know somebody else that might be interested, bring them along as well. Again, we are going to start. This is going to also be announced to the public through the county executive, as well as through the city of Milwaukee as well, public health department. So anyone that may be interested in the beginning, you will be a part of that announcement to the community, just so you know that as well. I give all this to God. The Father told me this and said this is what we should be doing, and so I'm just following his lead. I promise you, when I say he woke me up every morning to be able to build this, he gave me this. I have a better and true, more respect for Noah. And let me explain to you why I say that. Because God gave Noah the resin, the wood, the measurements. He didn't say build a ship. He didn't say build a boat. He told him to build an ark. He gave specific instructions, and he followed through. I don't know, and you can tell me, Pastor, was Noah a builder, an architect, a carpenter? I don't know if he was, because I'm not a transportation person. I want you to understand that. But he gave this information to me to do, and all I'm doing is trying to follow it the best I can. And he gave it to me to give to you. He gave it to me to give it to Pastor. The goal is we are going to change this community and this nation by bringing a new tool to help our people. That's all I have. I love y'all. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Right now. We're just right here. The goal is to test it here, take anything that needs to change, and then to be able to take it to different states as well. Any other questions? I got to have some questions. Yes. Yep. So VAO came into the scene in regards to that to do medical transportation with the state. They're already connected to the state. I was so happy they came. Because when I discussed this in 2015, no one even understood what I was talking about. So what VAO is doing, which is great, is they're able to do those transportations, to train them and stuff like that. The difference is with us is they're not specifically talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. We are. That is a demographic that has been considered invisible. But the thing is that the individuals with the disease get around, and they've been doing it. They ain't just going to start because we've started. We're just making sure that they understand that we're here and we're targeting those individuals. Correct. You got it. VAO is just actually just has the technology. They contract with individuals to do that, right? To be able to use their technology in that capacity. My goal is to build this into the community. The community is taking up hold of this and using this technology to help themselves out of the issue. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, it is. So we talk about risk. These risks, we talk about high blood pressure, diabetes. All of these have to do, you talk about healthy heart, healthy stomach, healthy brain. Diabetes, what diabetes really does, it restricts the things that the blood vessels and the veins for oxygen and blood to actually get to the brain. It shrinks those. What causes it, we all need sugar. But the issue with the sugar is because of the levels are high, what it does is the sugar can't get anywhere. So it starts damaging. It starts damaging your eyes, starts damaging your nerves and stuff like that. You talk about neuropathy and all those things. So if you don't get those under control, it's only going to get worse. It is a direct track, they're saying, regarding diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, rather, in regards to this disease. So the main thing we talk about in our community, we're on the top of every list. Every list we're on the top of. We talk about the men's health and women's health to be able to deal with things. What can you do right now? People are like, well, I don't want to get it, right? So there's things you can do right now. Exercise, your diet, all of those are major factors in able to curb that. You don't have to, right? And then there's things that would say what kicked in. What kicked in for my mom was she was showing signs at 50. What kicked it in was the surgery. So she went through, we were so nervous about her having any other anesthesia, because we were concerned about her having another decline. It is a progressive disease. There's nothing that stops it. There's only things that can baseline it. So there's certain medications that they give you and things like that. But the goal is you can prolong it as long as you can by doing certain things. But the other thing is everybody in the family has to be on the same page. This disease will tear a family apart. Will tear it apart. It's different than any other disease that's out there. It will do it. And I'm talking from experience. And so the goal is, it says everyone understands what's going on, because a lot of times there's a lot of denial that goes along with it. And it's just because they don't know what to do. And so once I bring all the information to you, everyone is able to make an informed decision on care. And so there's funding that's out there. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that can help immediately right now. Usually when I find families, we're in crisis. We're at the point that we need to deal with the burning of the house to then bring them back to a point that they can maintain. And that's just because of not understanding the disease. Any other questions? And these are the type of things that Pastor allows us. We keep building this moving forward. These trainings where you be going through as the driver, you would understand and have a better understanding of what the individual is actually going through. The goal is not to be afraid. I've already know when I was doing the services that there was individuals that were using Uber and Lyft at the time, and they had the early stages of the disease. But guess who they were? Our Caucasian brothers and sisters. They were using it. But we just didn't understand it. So we're bringing it to our people to use it as well. Yes. Another question? I'm sorry. What was it? Yes. So you're going to get your Dementia 101 training that we'll be going through, so you understand the top and bottom of all the disease as well. You'll also understand, we talk about the music piece that we'll be training. You'll have a trainer that's going to be coming through. Gina Green-Harris is going to work with us in that process to make sure you understand it before you step in. At no time when you are alone, it's the other thing, is the caregiver is always connected. They're the ones that order the rides. Those are the ones that were picking up the rides in regards to sending it and picking up. So at any time, that person, caregiver, which will be part of the training as well, will understand the agreement was there's no disconnect. It is a hand-to-hand, to door-to-door service. So in that, you'll be paid in a premium because we're asking you to do more. But the thing is, we will learn that people that have the understanding want to do it, whether it is or isn't. But we want to make sure we do know that you're providing this care. So you should be compensated at the amount that you should be compensated for, because this is a specialized service. That was a good question. And so all the ones who would start us off and want to do this, we'll be doing it together. We'll be learning together. We'll figure out what's going on. And then the goal is to build this in other cities and states from there. If there's no other questions, again, I say I thank you. Pastor Lyle, thank you. I know we are about to make this move.
So y'all, give it up for Dr. Bashir Easter. And y'all, I want you, oftentimes in the church, and for you ones that got here a little after 6, I said before we got started, how as a pastor, I oftentimes would give people the word of God, and we pray for them and things of that nature. But this is a process where we can walk with the people. That makes sense what I'm saying? Like, we can literally walk with them, get in the boat with them. And my mom, stand up, Mom, stand up. My mom is, I believe, 71. You still 71? She's 71, right, y'all? I thank God for my mom, still being here with me. We've had family members, right, that during the holidays, we had their family members that would, they would keep in the room, right? They were dealing with something. But when you say, interacting, being involved, and I think what the young lady in the back said, this is something for people that care, right? You just want to care to have the best possible life that you can have with this disease, right? And I think it's important to understand in the black community, how many grew up in a household where what goes into this house, stay in this house? Anybody ever heard that? Like, that's one of the worst things to tell families, we're going in this house, because if something bad is going on in the house or we need help, guess what? We shouldn't keep it in the house. So I think this is opening up the doors, going in the home, saying, hey, we're here to help, and to feel the love, man, to feel when you talk about your mom, when you put a picture up there, and to know and how you cared. It adds a different element when it hit home, right? See, Bashir's the main character in the story. And for him to say, I went through it so the other families don't have to go through it, y'all, we should really celebrate him and what he's doing, man. And I know his mama is proud, and I know your grandmama is proud, like saying, man, my son is carrying his legacy on. So, y'all, I'm excited about it.
Just one more thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, Gerald, would you come up? I want everybody to see his face because he's the one that's going to be interacting. Rob, I want you to please come up and talk about this service as well. Anita, would you please come up? I want them to see your face as well. and Hadia, would you please come up? I want you to see their faces. Says this is what is being built and making this happen. You would say a few things, Gerald?
I'm not much of a speaker, but I just want to add that I am going to be the trainer with the drivers. And again, like Bashir said, we want to add a extra, how can I say this? We want to add something extra with the driver. We want people to feel really welcome. We want people to feel safe. We want people to feel like they're in special care. And we want people to say with their loved ones, hey, I want that driver back, or I want that driver back. And we want just to make sure everybody feels welcome. Give it to Big Rob here.
Yeah, I'm real excited about what Dr. Bashir is doing in the community. And I just want to share with y'all, my family have a history of diabetes. I know it's not dementia, but one of the things that I learned, and I started working more with doing research on diabetes, it's the lack of knowledge. And so I'm glad that we're able to give knowledge to people in our community. We have family that go through a lot of things, health issues, and they don't get the help that they deserve. And when they go to the doctors just try to give them something to just, basically push them off. You know what I mean? It's just, hey, take this medicine, this will help. Take this medicine, this will help, but it's actually hurting them. And, I remember when I went to the doctor a while ago, they diagnosed me pre-diabetic, told me that they wanted to put me on medication. And I was scared. I was nervous. My mom, diabetic, dad, sisters, diabetes running my family, like I said. And I was able to not be able to get on medication because I had to change the way I eat. I met with a dietitian. I got the knowledge that I needed. I didn't realize a lot of the stuff that I was eating was hurting me. Even though I was working out and I was an athlete, I was still eating a lot of stuff that was high in carbs and sugar, and I wasn't doing everything that I needed to do. So what I decided to do was change my lifestyle. It became a lifestyle where, I stopped eating certain foods. I started eating a lot of foods that had a lot of sugar in it. I started, working out more than I was due. I would, monitor, the portions of food that I ate. And guess what? I don't have to take any medication for diabetes. And so, I just think, this, Dr. Bashir coming with this, God giving a vision, this, being, it's starting with unity. I think we can impact our community, and, I'm excited about it.
Good evening. I just want to say that I'm excited to work with Dr. Bashir. I really feel like this is something that our community needs. There are so many services that are available, but as he said, we as African Americans, we don't share that information, and I'm just so glad that God has led him to want to get this out and to help us. We all experience this in our families, and like it said, what stays in a house, we've been told, but we have got to get the word out. So I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that I'm a part of this. Thank you.
She don't have anything to say. We've covered everything. Yes.
Yes. Yep. So as long as they have a person of contact that can order the ride for them to get them where they need to go, that's fine. The goal is to make sure that that person that orders the ride is still considered the emergency contact. There's no separation from that individual, and to get them where they needed to go. So absolutely, the independence is what we're trying to make sure the individual still has. The dignity with that is they still have. So whether they're in the home with family, and usually that's where they are, but if they're not, they can still use the service. It doesn't change. We also, seniors and individuals with disability, MCI, anyone can use the service with the Guardian Asset. We're not turning individuals away, but this is our specialty. This would push us apart from other individuals or agencies. Yes. Yes, you can. So in that, all the work that I do, I told you the 5-point service as well, that still applies. So Melanin Minded is the business. Navigator Transportation is just one service that we're providing. So all the other pieces, I do that. We do an intake form with those families. I make sure they get connected to the services and supports that they need. That's exactly what we do. Yes, ma'am. Family care you're talking about. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the Department on Aging is supposed to be our source. I work there. It's, yeah. But I'll walk them through that process. You also, they have an elder law attorney that goes service for them. These are the type of stuff I talk about to families at no charge to them. And so what you're talking about, and this is aware for you all to understand when you talk about insurance policies, you're talking about they do like a 5-year, 10-year look back regarding if you're eligible financially and physically to be able to be a part of family care, which it really is to be able to be, the services are going to be paid through Title 19. They want to make sure you don't have enough of the assets that you're putting away that you can be using for yourself. So in order to do that, right, that all they want to make sure there's no cash value that's associated with the insurance policy. She can have her insurance policy. It could be based off of burial, anything that she wants to do regarding that. But if there's a cash amount that's associated with it, she would have to liquidate it and use that for her services, right, before they will have her involved. So we can walk through that whole process. She doesn't have to give that to anybody. That's her insurance policy. Whatever the cash value, though, is that's associated to it is going to have to be used for her care. And this is the other thing I want to share. I know as family, what we do is we want to give everything to our kids. We leave them the house. We want to leave this as a legacy, which we want to do. But if you need the care, if you need the help, that's for you. And so we definitely want to make sure that that's an understanding that anything that you've done, that you spent the time and you definitely want to give to your family, you should. But that doesn't mean that you get nothing. Right? So we educate that piece as well. So I can talk to you and help you with that as well. And that's just for now. It's not long term. It's easy ways to get around that. They do it all the time. And it's not a way to scam. It's a way to understand how the system looks at your finance. If you go through and do a burial trust, all that can be put in the burial trust and they can't touch it. So this is all information that we don't know. And that we are going through and we're sitting back and we're missing out. But I guarantee you there's some people that know and they're getting it hand over fist. We should not be, especially if we on the top of the list of these issues. And that's our charge. That's what we do to provide these services and their support. And I'm going to continue to do it.
Dr. Bashir, if somebody wanted to sign up or get more information, how do they do that?
Yeah, so on your brochures you should have, it says info@melaninmindedllc.com. Please go onto that email, put your email address. Go into email, put your information before I can get contact back to you. If you're interested in being a driver, all we'll do is we'll set up a larger session for us to be able to meet again. And then it's a very easy process, just so you know. If you need direct service, I'm going to talk to a few of you before I leave. So we're not going to wait. We're going to talk about it before we walk out of here. And then I'll set up a private session with you all to help you through the process as well. But the first thing is go to the info@melaninminded.llc.com, and then we will contact you back as we start building our driver database. If you know anyone, a friend, anyone else that wasn't able to be here, I know this is recorded, we'll do this again if you need it. Bring them along as well. The first group is going to be the foundation for this nation. I just want y'all to know that. I'll say that again. The first group that does this will be the foundation of this nation regarding this service. Okay. That's it.
All right, so let's give it up for Dr. Bashir, Melanin Minded, one more time. And everybody that's playing a role. So again, this will conclude the meeting at this time. Dr. Bashir, I think he's going to be talking to a few people. I think if you're interested. And then Brandon, we'll get a quick picture with everybody right now.